I'm Diana Swain. You're watching CBC News Network, and we're tracking a breaking story this hour out of Quebec. 7 people have died in a plane crash on the Ile de la Madeleine. Michael Serapio joins us with the latest. We've just learned some of the details in the past 10 or 15 minutes from Quebec Provincial Police.
Yes, some of the details, as this is still a breaking news story as you and I speak. Now, that plane crashed at around 11:40 a.m. That is local time, Ile de Madeleine. Crashed at around 11:40 a.m. local time, Ile de Madeleine, which is in the Atlantic time zone, not in the Eastern time zone. So at this point, what we can say is that there were 7 people on board that plane. Again, this is from the Sûreté de Quebec. They said that the plane departed from an airport in Saint-Hubert, Quebec, and it crashed as it was approaching landing.
And in fact, what we can say is that there has been speculation that someone who is fairly prominent is on that plane. We haven't gone into names for obvious reasons and won't until we know who in fact was on the plane.
Good evening. There has been a terrible plane crash in Les Îles de la Madeleine today.
7 people are dead, among them broadcaster Jean Lapierre. Jean Lapierre was traveling to Ile de la Madeleine with members of his family to help prepare for the funeral of his father. Now, Caroline, we understand the plane left St. Hubert Airport this morning.
Yes, Mitsumi, the plane took off from St. Hubert Airport this morning at around 9 o'clock, 9:30, and Jean Lapierre and his wife Nicole, 2 brothers and a sister, were all headed to the islands for the funeral of his father, who had died this past Easter weekend. Around 11:30, 11:40, SQ in the area were advised of a plane approaching the islands that had crashed hard in a field in an area called Havre aux Maisons.
The plane departed from an airport in Saint-Hubert, Quebec, and it crashed as it was approaching landing. Crashed at around 11:40 a.m. That is local time, Ile de Madeleine.
Around 11:30, 11:40, SQ in the area were advised of a plane approaching the islands that had crashed hard in a field in an area called Havre aux Maisons.
Happened around 4 o'clock this morning.
About 4 Sunday morning.
Briarwood. They say 31-year-old Lionel Pickens.
In Briarwood, Queens, still running hours after the 31-year-old star was shot 6 times.
Combined, the officers who shot the suspect have nearly 40 years of experience.
31-year-old Lionel Chinks Pickens was shot 15 times and killed in his Porsche on Queens Boulevard about 4 Sunday morning.
He died in the parking lot of the hospital. And what did they do to James Brown's son? They put $4 grand in his pocket, because 4 represent ritual. Indeed, with the elites letting them know the hit has been done.
Around 11:30, 11:40, SQ in the area were advised of a plane approaching the islands that had crashed hard in a field in an area called Havre aux Maisons.
That Lapierre was really someone that made politics palatable for the common man, describing him as a fighter and as an indefatigable and omnipresent person on the Quebec media landscape. Now, on Lapierre's Twitter, he lists all the places he worked for, including CTV and CJD and TVA, and a total of 10 stations, networks, or shows. Quebecor issuing a statement today calling Lapierre a hard worker, a generous person who was close to the people. Lapierre's political career started in 1979 when he was elected as an MP. He served until 1993, that part of his career, including partly for the Bloc Québécois. He then went back to the media, did some time in the radio, then came back as an MP in 2004, serving as a Liberal MP and becoming Paul Martin's Quebec lieutenant for the Liberal Party and serving as transport minister. So Kader really talking about today about what a great communicator that Lapierre was.
Now, first responders and ambulances were immediately dispatched to the scene, and they could see that the plane had already broken into 3 pieces, and it was quickly discovered that 6 of 7 people aboard had already perished. 1 person was still alive and transported to hospital in critical condition, but unfortunately paramedics or doctors were unable to save him as well. Now, it's obviously not known why the plane went down and broke into pieces, but conditions at the airport were not good. Environment Canada had issued an alert for strong winds in the region, and there was also a lot of fog over the area at the time.
The weather conditions were difficult. It was snowing quite heavily. There was a good crosswind at the time. Did that factor into the equation? That still remains to be determined.
Transportation safety investigators have been dispatched to the scene to investigate and will be on the scene tomorrow. And Jean Lapierre's wife and sister and 2 brothers, as I said, aboard that chartered flight. The last tweet on Jean Lapierre's Twitter account was that he was headed to his father's funeral, who had died at the age of 83 after a long battle with Parkinson's. And of course, the entire political class in Quebec, as well as broadcasters who worked with Jean, including us, are now expressing our sadness at this terrible news. Mitsumi.
Yeah, it is terrible news. Okay, thank you very much, Caroline.